Hello, my name's Anne Gravels and welcome to video 4 of 5 based on the Teaching, Learning and Assessment cycle. This video is based on the aspect of assessing learning and you can find more information in the books in chapter 6. Assessing learning is all about making a decision as to whether a learner can or can't do something. Assessments can be either informal or formal, and informal is usually ongoing to check progress and how your learners are actually doing at the time. And informal assessments can often be fun things like a quiz or just asking questions or watching a learner perform something, whereas formal assessments are usually based around the requirements of the qualification. For example, it might be an exam, a project, a case study or an assignment that has to be completed successfully for achievement of the qualification. Sometimes it can be you, or sometimes it can be the awarding organisation who actually create the qualification requirements. If it's you, then that's often based on informal assessments. For example, what you want to do during your session just to check progress on an ongoing basis. That's a really good question because sometimes people get types and methods mixed up. If you think of types as the ways that you use assessment, for example, initial at the beginning, formative, ongoing, summative at the end, and holistic, which means you can assess lots of different aspects at the same time. Whereas methods of assessment are the ways that you use those types. For example, you might use an assignment, a quiz, some questions, a project, a case study, etc. Concepts are the aspects involved in the assessment process, and often we use an acronym, VACSR, that's V-A-C-S-R, and that stands for valid, authentic, current, sufficient and reliable. For example, the assessments you use should be valid. They should only assess what is meant to be assessed. The work should be authentic, i.e. produced by the learner who is being assessed. The work should be current at the time of assessment. Even if a learner's got prior knowledge or experience that you're taking into account that they did a long time ago, you should still check that they have the current knowledge and skills at this moment in time. Sufficient? Is there enough evidence provided to prove that the learner can do what you are assessing? And the last one, reliable. Is the work reliable, i.e. if you did the same assessment with a similar group of learners, would you get similar results? Often making a decision is quite anxious on behalf of the teacher or assessor because you are saying whether somebody can or cannot do something, and it's hard sometimes to make a decision because you know your learners very well and you could easily be swayed by the fact that you know normally they will perform quite well, but perhaps under a formal assessment they didn't perform quite well. So you must be very objective with your decision making. Only assess what you are meant to assess and nothing else. For example, you should not take the personality of your learner into consideration. Whether you like or don't like your learners should not come into it either. You must just make a decision on what you are meant to assess. You should give feedback to your learner. Ideally, this should be straight away. For example, if you've carried out an observation, you should be able to tell them whether they have passed, or if not, what they can do to develop further. Or if you've been marking an assignment and you're not with your learner at the time, you could give written feedback. You could even email your learner if you wish, just to tell them whether they've been successful. But ideally, as soon as you see your learner, you should give them the feedback. And when giving feedback, try and be constructive. If you can start with something positive, then your learner will think, oh, that's okay, I've done well, I've passed. Or if you have to move on to something more negative, say it in a nice way. For example, however, you could do this differently, or you could perhaps try this in another way. And then give ideas as to how your learner can actually improve and develop further. I always feel assessment should not be in isolation from the teaching and learning process. It should be integral to it and continually take place throughout your time with your learners. Thank you. This was video 4 of 5 based on the Teaching, Learning and Assessment cycle.